Okay, today we're going to talk about AI's biggest blind spots. We all know these tools are incredibly powerful, but they have some specific failure modes that can cause huge problems if you don't know how to spot them. So let's get right into it.
So here's the core of the issue, right? Your AI assistant sounds so smart. It's designed to be fluent, confident, to sound human. It's an absolute master of language patterns. But all that polish can be super deceptive. It tricks us into believing that what sounds right is right. And that's a crucial distinction we have to make every single time we use these things.
So what really happens when we put a little too much trust in AI? I mean, this isn't just about getting a fact wrong for a school project. In the professional world, acting on flawed AI output can lead to some serious reputational, legal, or even financial damage. The stakes are way higher than you might think.
To get a handle on this, we're going to focus on 3 of the most common and most important failure modes. First up is hallucination, which is just a fancy word for when AI makes stuff up. Then we have bias, where it basically reflects our own human prejudices back at us. And finally, there's overconfidence, where it pretends to be certain when it's really just guessing. Let's break them down one by one.
All right, let's dive into our first and probably the most well-known AI failure, hallucination. This is the moment your AI assistant stops being helpful and starts being a creative writer, inventing details that have absolutely no basis in reality.
So here's the thing about a hallucination. It's not just a simple mistake. It's the creation of these plausible-sounding falsehoods. Now, the AI isn't lying. It doesn't have any intent. It's just generating the next most likely word based on its training data. And sometimes that path leads nowhere, so it has to invent a way forward.
And this is what makes hallucinations so dangerous. I mean, look at how real this looks. Johnson and Miller sounds plausible. The journal title, totally legitimate. The volume and page numbers just add that extra layer of credibility. But every single part of this citation is completely made up. And that's exactly why they're so easy to fall for.
So how do you protect yourself? It's simple, but you've got to be disciplined. If an AI gives you a specific name, a date, a statistic, or a citation that you plan to use, you have to treat it like a lead, not a fact. Your job is to take that claim and check it against an original source. And no, you can't just ask another AI.
All right, let's move on to our second failure. Now, unlike hallucinations, which are usually pretty obvious once you check them, bias can be way more subtle, way more insidious. AI models learn from enormous amounts of text written by humans, and in the process, they soak up all of our patterns, our assumptions, and yeah, our prejudices. You can think of it like this. The AI is just a mirror reflecting the data it was trained on. So if that data contains historical biases about gender or race or different professions, the AI is going to learn those biases and spit them right back out. It doesn't know they're unfair. To the machine, they're just strong patterns in the data. This is such a perfect and kind of painful illustration of the problem. You see the exact same core trait here, assertiveness. But look how it's framed. For the man, it's positive, strong leadership, confidence. For the woman, it's negative, aggressive, difficult to work with. This isn't a coding error. It's a direct reflection of deep-seated language patterns from millions of documents. And you can see how using an output like this without thinking could really reinforce really unfair stereotypes in the workplace. So to fight this, you need a new habit. It's a habit of critical questioning. When you get an answer from an AI, especially one that's about people, just pause for a second. Ask yourself, who might be misrepresented here? Or who's being left out entirely? Are there stereotypes at play? That one simple question forces you to be the human check on the machine's patterns.
And that brings us to our third and final failure mode, overconfidence. This happens when an AI doesn't have enough data on a topic, but instead of saying, I don't know, it just confidently makes up an answer in that same authoritative tone it uses for everything else. This is where things get really dangerous, especially in high-stakes fields.
Just remember, the AI's goal is to give you a helpful-sounding response. It's not programmed to say, I'm really not sure about this, you should probably ask an expert. This creates what we call a fluency bias. We are hardwired to believe something if it's stated clearly and confidently, even if there's no evidence to back it up. This example is honestly terrifying. The language is so decisive, so urgent. It uses technical jargon and makes it sound like there's only one option. In a real medical situation, this is incredibly risky. A human doctor would express uncertainty, suggest more tests, talk about options. The AI, on the other hand, just gives you the most statistically probable sounding answer, masking a huge margin of error with a tone of absolute certainty.
The practical habit here is really a mental one. You have to train yourself to completely separate the AI's confident tone from the actual reliability of its content. Hear the confidence, acknowledge it, and then deliberately ignore it. Instead, you focus on the substance and you ask yourself, does this require expert human judgment?
So we've walked through the 3 biggest blind spots. Now, the solution isn't to just stop using AI. It's about using it smarter. And that all comes down to building a few simple but really powerful habits that put your judgment right back in the driver's seat.
Let's recap these really quick. First, for any fact that matters, you must verify it. Don't trust, check the source. Second, to fight bias, always question the output. Ask whose perspective might be missing. And third, to avoid the overconfidence trap, you have to ignore the tone. Your critical judgment is what counts, not the AI's artificial certainty. And that brings us to the final and most crucial point. These tools are assistants. They are not authorities. They can draft for you, they can summarize, they can brainstorm, but they cannot take ownership of the outcome. The final responsibility for the accuracy, the fairness, and the impact of any work, that always rests with you, the human user. So the real question is, are you ready to take on that responsibility?